Good afternoon, everyone. Say, do you guys remember the game Telephone? Come on, you know the game. We all played it, probably in elementary school. You know, it's when the teacher starts a message at one end of the room and each student passes it from one to the other. Usually, by the time it's passed through the entire room, it barely resembles the original message. Yeah? Right. At the end, it's usually something pretty funny and we all get a pretty good laugh out of it. Yep, I loved that game. Why, you ask? Because it's a perfect example of the differences between hearing and listening. So, most people believe they're good listeners. Yet, many times the message gets completely lost in the transfer of information during conversation or speech. Barriers such as internal and external noise can keep us from understanding the true message the speaker is trying to communicate. And that may lead to incorrect assumptions and conflict. Hello, I'm Brody Gregory, and today I'm going to discuss the differences between hearing, listening, and responding effectively. I've recently researched articles written by academics and experts in the field of listening, comprehension, and interpersonal communications to show how things such as external noises, incomplete information, and even social media biases may affect the listening comprehension of people hearing someone speak. Listening is one of the most important skills for good interpersonal communications. Yet, although this is important, it is often one of the least practiced or perfected skills. We often hear someone speaking, but do not actually listen to the information being presented to us. Whether that's due to some external barrier or our need to get our own message out, this lack of listening can lead to a breakdown in communication. So, how do we improve our listening skills, you might ask? Well, first let's start by clearly defining the terms hearing and listening. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines hearing as a process, function, or power of perceiving sound. Specifically, the special sense by which noises and tones are received as a stimuli. However, Merriam-Webster defines listening as to pay attention to sound, to hear something with thoughtful attention, and to give consideration. Understanding the differences between the two are vitally important in making us better at interpersonal communications. According to authors Richard West and Lynn Turner, listening is one of the most utilized skills in our interpersonal communication, but the skill that is attended to the least. So, apparently, most people think all they need to do to be good listeners is to be quiet while the other is speaking. Yet it means so much more than that. As West and Turner tell us, listening is a cooperative connection with another person, demonstrating that the receiver is equally responsible for the co-creation of meaning in a conversation. It takes two, right? Researcher and writer Sarah Lindberg says that listening can be broken down into two distinct terms: active listening and passive listening. Active listening is the act of listening and reacting appropriately to the other person, while passive listening is when one is not actually trying to take part in the conversation and therefore not really trying to understand the information that's being passed along to them. So one of the most effective ways to improve our listening abilities is to use active listening. Author Mary Delongo said in 1995 that the fact is, when the listener perceives and understands the meaning of speech, he simultaneously takes an active, responsive attitude towards it. So, be active when you listen. Clear all the clutter and engage in the information coming at you. Are you listening? West and Turner list several barriers to effectively listening. Among them are noise, which is anything that interferes with the communication process between the speaker and the listener. Noise can be something like physical noises, like loud music, or even something like heavy machinery. Semantic noises, like other languages, different terms like slang, or even misinformation. Psychological noises like feeling sick, having a headache, or being too hot or too cold. psychological noises like prejudices and biases as well. So, how do we overcome these barriers to communication? Well, Weston Turner also lists several ways to overcome those barriers. We can overcome them by, firstly, evaluate your listening skills by assessing and understanding your personal listening strengths and weaknesses. You can prepare to listen. You can provide empathetic responses when they're necessary. You can use non-judgmental feedback, as well as practice active listening. Let's focus on active listening, for example. According to researcher Andrea Eggenberger, active listening as a critical communication skill is about paying attention and focusing on the speaker in a manner that allows the listener to understand and interpret the information given to them. Well, what does that mean to you and me? It means we should be quiet and attentive while someone is speaking. It also means we should ask relevant questions at appropriate times to show we are paying attention and actually receiving the message that comes from the sender. These things show we are fully engaged in the flow of information. Better listening skills will not only pay off for us in school, but they will also help us achieve our goals in our careers. As Andrea Eggenberger said, active listening is a vital career readiness skill that employers are looking for in college graduates. So with all this in mind, I'd like to say that becoming a more effective listener is the key to our ability to communicate with one another. When we become more effective at listening, we become more effective at learning. Improved listening skills means improved reception of information. That leads to better performance in school and will also lead us to greater achievement in our search for our careers beyond college. Thank you.